Hey, what's up everybody? Ramey here, and today we're talking about whether it is worth it to buy one of these things, a multi-grip barbell. Is it worth buying one of these? What are the things you should look for when you're buying one, and should you even get one at all? We'll talk about the different features of this thing. It's kind of why I chose this one and how you should choose the one that you're looking for. All right, so first of all, why do people even get these things? They usually get them because they want some variation in their exercises. For example, they like the grip here for, like tricep presses on the bench. Maybe they want neutral, they want to do neutral grip bench presses because they got a shoulder injury. Maybe they want to use it for hammer curls. Maybe they want to use it for rows and they want neutral grip for rows versus a barbell. All kinds of different exercises that this thing can be used for. However, everything that this thing can be used for, so can a regular barbell. It just changes the grip to neutral. So does that even matter? And what do you look for? You notice when you look at these bars, like some of them have curved, different angles for the grips. Some of them are straight. Some of them have a nice arch right here, like they're cambered. They got a nice arch here. Why do they have all that stuff, and does any of that stuff matter? Okay, so the features of these things and kind of why I chose this barbell, and then we'll talk about benefits or advantages or disadvantages to your body while using it, and is it actually worth it. So first of all, as far as the features of these things, if you're buying one of the things to make sure is that it's actually going to fit your rack. Now I bought the Titan multi-grip barbell. I also have some of my rack pieces are Titan, so I'm actually a Titan width of 48 inches. This fits absolutely perfect. On a Rogue rack, I probably have about 1 inch of clearance. So checking the width of your rack versus the multi-grip barbell you're going to buy is kind of a big deal, because I've kind of heard that some of them don't fit on certain racks. Sometimes I've heard reps 47 inches is too thin and Rogues is too wide. So it kind of depends. I measured it versus a standard Rogue Ohio bar, and this is about a ½ inch thinner, maybe a ½ inch to an inch less to play with. But overall, this should fit every rack. Just make sure that you know the clearance of the one that you're actually going to buy. All right, next thing so we talked about width. Next thing you want to consider when buying these is the hand spacing. Because what's kind of odd about these is that most of them, except for the new version that Rogue has created, have a fixed place where your hand goes. So if you buy one of these and your grip, you'd rather have it like an inch, just not comfortable in that position, you're kind of stuck with it because it's fixed. You'll notice some people I noticed have like 3 and 4 of these different kinds of barbells with all the different grips, different angles, because they want to keep playing with it because the one that they got did not work correctly for their grip. So what I did before I bought this one is I actually sat down on my bench with a tape measure, put my hand in the different grips that I would have with dumbbells, whether it be angled or straight, and measured what I preferred. And then what I did, I knew that I wanted this for 2 different grips. I wanted it for a close grip tricep press, and I wanted it for a neutral grip bench type press. So I went out and measured. I found out what my inches were, and then I found a marked multi-grip barbell that actually had these 2 measurements: a neutral grip bench and the I looked at a number. I had probably 10 different multi-grip barbells I was comparing. And this one was the closest one to meeting the width distances that I would have wanted. My only other option, if this one wouldn't have existed, I was just going to pay the extra money, which was 4 times the cost of this, for the Rogue ones that allows you to switch the handle angles and distances. I actually really like that idea. But I really think you have to do that, because if you get one of these that's just like 2 inches too wide, I think that you're not really going to enjoy it, and some of the features and reasons you bought it might not do that. Do what you really wanted it to do. So I really think you need to, before you buy one of these, you need to measure what you're doing. Just take some dumbbells and just kind of get a nice average ballpark of what kind of grips you're looking for. And then go out and look at all the bars. They all tell you the distances. There's a ton of brands that offer these. Titan, Rep, Bells of Steel, Rogue, all the companies offer these, and some of them have different sizes and stuff and different angles. You just got to kind of compare what you prefer. I realized that with the bench press, like neutral grip bench, I didn't want it to be angled, I wanted it to be straight. But for tricep, I wanted it angled. I learned that with my dumbbells and my tape measure. All right, next thing. Should you get it with the arch here or not? The reason that you get it with the arch is so that, like, let's say you're doing a chest press, you can actually bring it down your hands further than your chest, or the reverse on a row, you could bring your arms up over like your bench or whatever. I did not get that feature because I actually have to do a floor press because of an old AC joint injury. I don't do a floor press, I do a board press about 2 inches above my chest because of an old AC joint injury that I have had for 20 years. And if I do a standard bench press and touch my chest, my AC joint gets inflamed and it sucks. So I have no choice, and I can actually do bench if I just do a board press, so that's what I do. So I did not need the angled one for this because that would serve me no benefit. So I actually purposely looked for a straight one, but you may prefer an angled one. I also think the straight one's probably a little easier to store on a rack than an angled one, so that was also a consideration for mine as well. But would I have gotten the curved one if it had the right measurements? These measurements were the most important thing for me, whether it was straight or curved. I wouldn't have cared too much. It just so happened that I preferred the straight, and the one I found was straight. All right, so those are the basic features. As far as these handle grips, you know, they can change from different angles to straight. And those are basically the features of these bars. Now, the big question becomes, why don't, like, for example, why didn't I just use dumbbells? Because I could get any grip with dumbbells. And does this thing actually do anything like for your work different muscles? Or is it better for your, like, your body in different ways? Like better for your shoulder, like some people say they get it for their shoulders. And is it actually worth getting it? So, first of all, the reason you would use this over dumbbells is that it's much easier to use a lot of weight with these. You know, a lot of people want to use dumbbells, and especially if you're talking about like bench press, getting heavy dumbbells up there is not fun. In a good position, you usually just can't get as much weight up with dumbbells as you can with a barbell. And you also have to have the dumbbells, which not everyone does. I think I have just fixed dumbbells. I think I have up to like maybe 80 to 90 pounds on each dumbbell. It's really just not enough for a good like bench press or something like that. This is much easier to rack, so that's why I would use this over dumbbells if I wanted that neutral press. Now the next question, which I think is kind of like the $1 million question, is this bar better for your shoulders? Does it put you in a healthier position? So let me actually crack this puppy. All right, and let's kind of talk about that. And to do that, I'm going to sit here in front of you and kind of show you some different shoulder positions. So one of the reasons that people buy these things is they say that their shoulder position is much better when they have this. That maybe the bench press causes them pain, and this helps solve that. I've also heard the opposite when I read things online. Does this actually causes shoulder pain for some people? Now, what I did to start this is I went in and I searched the literature and tried to find research on hand position and bench press, grip and bench press. And I also looked for overhead press as well, or incline. And unfortunately, I could not find anything. I did a pretty extensive search. I went into my university's database. I just could not find any literature on it. That doesn't mean there isn't studies on it. It just means they weren't easy and simple for me to find. I did a pretty extensive search and I just couldn't find it. I did find tons of articles on like bench press width, overhead press width, and like muscles it works, and whether like it was good or bad for the shoulder based on the width, but nothing whether you had like neutral versus pronated grip. I just could not find studies on that. I wanted to find like studies on building muscles worked. I wanted to find EMG studies that showed like how things, all the different muscles worked in each of the different positions to see if it was the same, but I really couldn't find anything out there. I did, however, find tons of blog posts, tons of anecdotal evidence of people telling me what it works and stuff, and that's all great. I think those blog posts and the anecdotal evidence is very useful when trying to figure out if this helps shoulder injuries and stuff like that and works different muscles, but it's not what I would have liked to see. I would have liked to see the literature. Let's just put it that way. But I didn't, so we're going to go with what I have and my personal thoughts on it as well, because that's all the information I was able to find. So first of all, I want to say if you have shoulder pain from doing bench press, but you don't have like an old shoulder injury or rotator cuff injury or something like that, I'm probably going to tell you or ask you, are you doing your bench press correctly? And before I go out and buy one of these bars, I'd probably tell you to go to a physical trainer or go to a strength coach and make sure you're actually doing your bench press correctly. You might find that like your shoulder hurts because like your rear dell is weak or something like that, and you need to improve that to make the pain go away, not use a different bar. So like this shouldn't be a crutch. So that's one thing, like if you have shoulder pain. Now, if you have shoulder pain and it's from like a rotator cuff, whatever, like I have an AC joint injury and you want this kind of bar to help some nagging shoulder pain and it actually does that, then I think, hey, more power to you. And then I think all of a sudden, this bar becomes worth it. Now, for me, what I did is I started to compare like the neutral grip versus the regular grip on the bench, and does this work different muscles? I do think on a bench press that this does put more emphasis on the triceps. Because of the neutral grip, it does take some of that stretch out of the chest, especially in the lower position. Now, since I don't really go in the lower position, I only get about 2 inches above my chest with a board press because of I have so many injuries on this shoulder. I didn't find much of a difference with the bar itself in a bench press position. Now, let me talk about the actual reason I bought this bar. So I also, in addition to having an AC joint injury, both of my shoulders are pretty unstable. This one I dislocated on skateboarding on a half pipe. This one I've had some pretty significant injuries surfing and in jiu-jitsu. Major rotator cuff injuries on this one. So a neutral grip, my shoulders feel unstable. So two of the most unstable exercises for those with bad shoulders and previous dislocations are the incline press and the overhead press. For the overhead press, I already do a neutral grip. For those of you with an unstable shoulder, you know that this position, this baseball pitching position, is the absolute worst position for your shoulder. You also know that if you turn your wrist like this, it's much harder for that shoulder to dislocate. I learned this in physical therapy that I can't, it's so much harder for me to get my wrist into the dislocating position when it's neutral grip versus this grip, where it just bends really easy. I also learned this in jiu-jitsu, where it's much like if I wanted to avoid an Americana key lock submission going like this, is a slight defense, not 100%, but it's a slight defense to the position versus this, which is just you give up right away. You can't fight it at all. I know my shoulder was going to get torn. With this, I could fight a little bit until they would get it enough. So I know from experience that this neutral grip position can help with instability and dislocation. So I purposely bought this bar only for incline press to help with my shoulder instability. That's it. That's what I bought it for. I knew I had instability. So I do think the bar was worth it for me in that case. For overhead press, I already do neutral grip with a Viking press, so that I kind of switch between pronated and neutral. But the effect of your grip, that neutral versus pronated, can have an effect on muscle building. We do know from studies, I told you there weren't any studies on chest, like bench press. There are studies on back workouts and pull-ups versus chin-ups, which tell you the difference of muscles worked and effects on different things when you use a pronated versus reverse grip or neutral grip on a pull-down. So pronated, neutral, and back. And what those studies have shown is that when you use the regular pronated grip, your back, your lats, actually get worked more. So I know going to a neutral grip is going to cause some effects on shoulder and chest when you're doing bench press and stuff, based on those studies from the back, based on what blogs say, based on everyone's anecdotal evidence, based on my personal experience. I just wish we had those studies on the chest. So that's why I got this, for incline press only, to help with some shoulder instability. I do incline as an accessory. It's not a big deal. It's not one of my main presses. It's done on shoulder day as an accessory workout for me. All right, so do I think this bar, that comes to the big question, is this bar worth it for you should you go buy this thing? So I think if you're looking for some variation in your workouts, what things hit, you're just sick of bench press or something like that, this bar can be cool. They're pretty cheap. The Rogue one is kind of expensive, the one with the adjustable handles, but I do think that's kind of the coolest one. I think that's the best feature. I've heard some rumors of some other companies coming out with something similar to that are going to be like half the cost of the Rogue one, so look for that in the future. That's something to kind of look forward to, but I do think that's kind of the best one. But kind of consider your features if you are going to buy one. Consider the grip distance and what you like. Test it with dumbbells before you go buy it. If you are experiencing some shoulder pain when you do a bench press and you're like, I want to get this bar to take care of that, I'm going to tell you to go to physical therapy, not to go buy one of these. I'm going to tell you to go to physical therapy first, go figure out what your problem is, why you're getting that shoulder pain, and then see maybe this bar is the solution, but maybe it isn't. I wouldn't want you to go waste your money on something that like isn't the solution, and I don't think just using a different bar because it hurts is necessarily always the solution to something. So I'm not sure this bar is really useful for all people. If you have shoulder instability, I do think on both overhead press and incline press, a neutral grip like this is significantly better to help. No, it's not 100% a solution to shoulder instability, but it definitely keeps your shoulder more compact and in a better position not to dislocate as easily. So I think in that case, it's worth it. For most people, based on what I read on forums who have these, I'm not quite sure the bar's worth it. I really can't find anything in the research to support the use of the bar, and that makes me a little nervous about just recommending it to people. But for those of you that want that variation in your grip, I think it's cool. I think it's a neat way to do it. I am gonna like the tricep, close grip tricep. That just feels better. Honestly, a barbell is just as good, but this just kind of, the angled grip feels a little better. And it's going to help with my instability. So in those cases, those kind of scenarios, I think it's worth it. But just ask yourself, like, is it worth me getting this barbell? Like, it's big. You got to store it somewhere, especially if you get the ones with the angles on them. Like, where are you storing this thing? Is it really worth me getting this? Am I going to use it? Is kind of the big question. So like, I'd really tell you to ask yourself, because it's a big barbell. So like, know that you want and need this thing before you go get it, and do those measurements to find out your grip widths, to find out like what you're gonna prefer before you go ahead and buy it. All right, everybody, I know I kind of talked a lot in this video and went into a lot of stuff, but one of the reasons I did that and I talked so much in this video is that it kind of went into like really got into the shoulder instability and the grip effect, is because I'm really unsure about this barbell for most people. Those grips, I really want to know, like, I want to see some EMG studies to see like how the grip impact on bench press, like what it really does change. I'm just very curious about that. I also would love to see I'd like to see more studies talking about like shoulder pain and shoulder instability with neutral versus pronated grips on bench press specifically. There just aren't those out there. So I'd really like to see that before I give this like 100% like, oh yeah, this can help. Because I have heard from people that said this bar actually caused them pain in their shoulders too. So it can kind of have that like reverse effect on some people. So stuff to think about before you go ahead and invest in these. All right, y'all, later.